Good afternoon. Welcome to the podcast Journal of Nuclear Medicine, Challenges and Opportunities 2025. Subtitled, Can a Society-Based Journal Compete with Corporate-Based Scientific Publishers? I'm David Mankoff from the University of Pennsylvania, and I'd like to introduce my colleagues, Dr. Hossein Jadvar from the University of Southern California, and Dr. Todd Peterson, who's from Vanderbilt University Medical Center. And with that, gentlemen, we'll start with the first question. First question is, what content should the JNM prioritize to meet both the needs of the science of the field and the membership of the SNMMI? Should it be basic science? Should it be clinical work only, or some combination of the two? Hossein?
Yes, first of all, let me say that it's great to be in your company and Todd's company with this podcast. This is a great question, and it really reflects our society and our field. Our field is a combination of basic sciences, translational sciences, and clinical sciences. So this was also discussed at our JNM session here at the annual meeting in New Orleans. And what I got out of that was that basically a balance is needed. We really need to have this balance of basic sciences and clinical sciences and translational sciences, plus issues about appropriate use criteria and procedure guidelines, which is also very useful to the society members, JNM being a society journal. So this is what I got out of this discussion, and I feel that what we have today is the balanced approach we are doing is relevant and appropriate.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, we often like to say that one of the strengths of the Society of Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging is that we bring together, the basic scientists, the radiochemists, the radiopharmacists, the technologists, the physicians, all under one umbrella. And so it's great that the flagship journal for the society reflect that. And as a basic scientist myself, I think it's great, if I have an opportunity to publish something in a journal like JNM, because I know it's going to get out to a broader community than just my group of physicists and engineers that I might if I went to another journal. And so I think the diversity is a strength, and it also, I would assume, maybe from a clinician standpoint, is interesting to see what might be coming down the pike, in a sense. When the Explorer scanner came out, you could see, you didn't have to be a physicist to appreciate that this was going to be a game changer. And so having that all represented in one place, I think, is a real strength for the journal, just as it's a real strength for the society.
And I will close by saying I think it's a feature of our society, as much as any society I've ever been involved in bringing science and clinic together. And so I think our journal should reflect that.
Okay.
Hossein, you get the next question.
Yes. And I think it will be appropriate for you, perhaps, Todd, because you're the chairman of or chair of the publications committee at the society. Can a society-based journal such as JNM compete with corporate publishing giants?
Well, I think the first sort of question, right, is to kind of deal with what you mean by compete, right? I mean, because the big journal publishers are going to probably outdo us profit-wise, right? Because that's how they're running the journals, is to extract a profit. Can we compete in terms of quality and in terms of impact? I think definitely. So, a big journal like the big publishers, Springer, Nature, Elsevier, all the ones that we know, they can do things much more efficiently from a financial standpoint, and they can maybe move quickly in a sense to do some new features or upgrade the graphics and how the journal looks. Those sorts of things they have less cost, and they have more sort of back office support to implement those things. But I think it's a real strength that we as a society control our own journal, because all of the decisions being made about the journal are being made by society members in the interest of the society. So clearly there has to be sort of a business model, financial sort of case, but I think we have a lot of flexibility, a lot of adaptability. We can be nimble. If the editorial board has a direction they would like to go, and maybe it requires some investment to implement that, well, instead of having to worry about the shareholders and the managers who are extracting money from it, it's going to ultimately be decided by the SNMMI board of directors whether they're willing to invest in that. Those board of directors are members of the society who are members of the field and participants, and so can understand and make the decisions not only from a financial standpoint but for the good of the society. So I think we can compete very well, and I think it's the evidence that we're doing it very well right now.
Great. David, do you want to add?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I happen to have an editorial role for one of those journals run by a big corporate society. And I think what you see differently here is the spirit of the process, the quality of the science. You see it in everything from the dedication our fabulous staff have in putting this journal together to the fervor with which the associate editorial board really takes pride and brings us into it. And really the scientific content of the journal getting reviewed by people that are truly peers within the same society. So that is never going to compete with the big profit market, but I don't think the big profit market is going to compete with the degree to which this journal represents the science in our field.
Very good point.
The important points.
I guess, Todd, you get the third question.
Okay, well, for you gentlemen, yeah. Well, so how do practices such as open access and the push in social media, around scientific publish, how does that, or how is that impacting JNM, and how should it impact JNM?
Yeah, I'll take a couple of those. I think we're pushing ourselves more and more towards open access. Open access still requires all the production capabilities that a print journal does. It just doesn't require the printing. So a lot of the expense that seems like it shouldn't be there in open access is. And so I think everybody agrees open access is a great idea. We just need to keep in mind how we go about paying for that. As for social media, I call myself a digital immigrant from the old country sometimes. So I may not be the person to comment on that. But in certain ways, I think social media is both a friend and a risk. The friend is that we can really get our message out much more widely. But at the same time, as we do that, I think we have to maintain the scientific rigor, the balance that we do as a journal that gives us the type of impact that we have. I think it's a balance that we can follow, and we absolutely should be part of social media, but we've got to be a little thoughtful about how we do that. Hossein?
Very good. Well, with regard to open access, again, I think the trend is that way, and in fact, some funding agencies are requesting that research papers to be visible and accessible to the public as soon as possible. So I think the trend is that way, but there is also an ugly side of this perhaps, and that we talked about that in our JNM session just a few minutes ago regarding predatory journals that are basically there to ask folks to submit papers with extremely rapid reviews, and basically these are traps for money in a sense. So this has to be balanced and understood by everybody who actually is going to play the role in open access issue. Social media, I'm just like you, but I think it's very important. But I know that the society is very active in social media right now with regard to their activities, advocacy, and of course even JNM. And the younger generation are very much plugged into social media. So this is an important feature that we need to pay attention to and expand, I think. Todd?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you don't mind me following up on both aspects of that, I think the philosophical idea of open access is something that everyone can agree with, right? I mean, particularly if the public is funding science, that science should be available to them. So that's great. But when a lot of these when the open access movement first started, that's when you had a lot of these journals popping up that were just using it to extract money. I think now that the mandates are becoming pretty widespread, including the NIH instituting, that things be available immediately upon publication to the public, that's going to just force us all to adjust the business models to adapt to open access. So I think that's still going to take a while to sort itself out. But again, the idea, the philosophy, the motive for open access to make it available to the public, I think that's where social media can play a role. So, I mean, social media is great. I think we're doing a good job of it right now to make some of the things in the journal visible to people who are working in the field. But I think there's an opportunity to also try to make it visible or to interpret the potential impact to the public through social media.
That's great.
David, do you get the last question?
I get the last question, yeah. So, and this gets to something that our current editor, Johannes Cernan, brought up yesterday at the editorial board meeting, and that is the journal of 10 years is going to look nothing like the journal of today. So we're in this very rapid evolutionary pathway with financials, social media, a number of different things changing the way we look at this, AI, for example. And so what do you all think about the evolutionary path of the journal vis-a-vis some of the influences that will come up in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned AI, but what I want to focus on right now is this trend of major journals actually starting having companion journals, and we are seeing it in imaging field also. And as I mentioned in this session that we talked about, again, there are advantages and disadvantages. The advantages is that if you have a very solid parent journal, you can leverage that and you can expand the scope and reach and the depth of what you're covering and the content. And some of these franchises have been extremely very successful, like the Nature publications. But in some cases, they have not been very successful at all. And the disadvantage, of course, here is that you dilute the journal, the parent journal, and in fact, that can drag the impact factor of the parent journal down. So it has to be done with really a well-thinking and kind of evaluating both the pluses and minuses of such approach. If a journal wants to go that way and create companion journals. Todd?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think there's evidence, given that the acceptance rate at JNM right now hovers down around 20%. I mean, we all know there's some really good articles that aren't getting published there, right? And potentially even the articles of real impact. And so keeping them within the society sphere makes sense. So that's an appealing aspect of it. I think it, one does have to be careful of not sort of diluting or degrading or detracting from the flagship journal. And, certainly I think we're a small enough field, even when we brag about our diversity across that whole thing, we're still a small enough field that to slice it into subcategories or to move things out of the journal, the main journal, would be a problem. We probably don't have enough stuff there, and we would risk, that great balance that we talked about the full range in the main journal. So I think, and then of course, as my role in publications committee chair, you have to think about what's the business case, because again, this is a case where the big publishers, when you're already publishing 1,000 or 1,500 journals or whatever else, to add one more journal is the marginal increase in cost is negligible, nothing. For us to double the number of journals or triple the number of journals we're handling, that's something that we'd really have to work out how that model works. But again, to the point of, other aspect of the question, when we have such a rapidly evolving, just not only academic publishing writ large, but all these other aspects of AI and social media and all of this, it's really hard to predict what the future of journal is. I mean, I think the only thing we can count on is it's going to look different.
The future's going to not be the same. And I'll close by commenting on the AI portion of that from two standpoints. One is, I think there's often fear in the imaging world that AI is going to take the place of physicians and everybody else, and we won't need anybody but a computer. That hasn't turned out to be true. And I think what we're finding is AI does everything from make us more efficient in the clinic, to helping us read our scans, to being an agent for discovery when we have all this data with a lot of information hidden beneath it. So I think the journal will continue to have AI as an increasingly important content. Then we come back to generative AI and the ability of it to write and review our articles. And I think there was pretty strong consensus that maybe we can use a spell checker or a grammar checker, but we shouldn't allow AI to write our articles. We shouldn't really allow AI to review our articles, with some exceptions that, again, there may be some help along with that. That may very well change as we use AI almost as the way we've often used assistants and production managers. And so I may have to come back and eat those words as early as next year. But I think there was a very clear discussion today that the human elements of the writing and reviewing need to be preserved. And to some extent, we need to protect ourselves against things that come to us that have been AI generated without human oversight.
Well said. Well, I just want to say it was a pleasure to be in your company, David,
Absolutely, yeah.
and in your pleasure in with Todd and discussing JNM and its future.
It's great. And I do want to thank Todd. He was a late draftee, and he's been a big part of this process. So
Thank you.
Oh,
very much.
it was a great pleasure to join you, gentlemen.
And your role in serving with us in the Publications Committee has made the journal what it is.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Please read the Journal of Nuclear Medicine and come to what
And cite its articles.
That's right.
Please cite its articles.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.